A very good morning. So today I'll be presenting a class on thumb sucking habit. So according to Dorland in 1957, a habit is defined as any practice which is fixed, which is constant, and which is established by frequent repetition. And there are many habits which are commonly seen in children, such as the mouth breathing habit, the thumb sucking habit, and the tongue thrusting habit. And thumb sucking habit is one of the most commonly habit which is seen in children at a very younger age, and it is defined as the placement of the thumb or one or more fingers into varying depths into the oral cavity. So let us see what is the cause for this thumb sucking habit, or what are the concepts and theories of thumb sucking habit. And the most common theory which explains the thumb sucking habit is the classical Freudian theory and the oral drive theory. The classical Freudian theory was given by Sigmund Freud, and the oral drive theory by Sears and Weiss in 1982. And according to the classical Freudian theory, Sigmund Freud says that the child goes through different stages of psychological development. And the first stage is the oral phase. And in that phase, what happens is that the mouth is the erogenous zone, and the child has a tendency to place anything and everything into the oral cavity. And it is believed that any kind of deprivation of this activity will probably cause an emotional insecure individual. And according to the oral drive theory, which is given by Sears and Weiss, they suggest that the strength of the oral drive is in part a function of how long a child continues to feed by sucking. It is not the frustration of weaning that produces thumb sucking, but it is the prolonged feeding or prolonged nursing which ultimately leads to the thumb sucking habit. So there are also certain etiological factors for this thumb sucking, and the thumb sucking habit is most commonly seen in working mother who spends very little time with the children. So what happens is that the child ultimately have a insecurity feeling, and finally they continue to develop this thumb sucking habit, because once they have this thumb sucking habit and placement of thumbs into the oral cavity, they feel more secure, more comfortable. So it is most commonly seen in working mothers. It is most commonly seen in bottle-fed infants. And another etiological factor is the number of siblings. And the more the number of siblings increases, what happens is that less attention is paid to each and every sibling. So ultimately, they also have a feeling of insecurity, and finally leads to the thumb sucking habit. The next is the order of birth of child. Later, the siblings ranks in the family, greater the chance of having an oral habit. And it is also seen that these thumb sucking habit or any kind of habits are most commonly seen in children who are having more amount of stress, more amount of emotional insecurity, etc. And so these are some of the etiological factors in thumb sucking habit. Now let's see what are the effects of thumb sucking habit. So in thumb sucking habit, what happens is that the child is putting the thumb or the fingers into the oral cavity, and it is pressing against the palate. So what happens is that there is more proclination of the upper teeth. Upper anteriors get more proclined, and the lower anteriors get more retroclined. So as a result of this, there is a development of an anterior open bite. So the most common feature what you see in a thumb sucking habit is the anterior open bite, which is caused due to the proclination of the upper anteriors and the retroclination of the lower anteriors. And the thumb or the fingers are constantly touching the palate also. So there is the development of a high arch palate is developed because of the imbalance in the muscular activity. So these are some of the most common findings what you see in the thumb sucking habit. So let us see, how do we manage this habit? So once a habit is seen, it has to be managed, it has to be eliminated, because if it is not eliminated, it may cause severe dental and skeletal malocclusions. So there are different techniques of management of this thumb sucking habit. And as I told you, one of the most common cause for this thumb sucking habit is a psychological problem. So we can do a psychological management for the thumb sucking habit. We can make the child aware. If the child is about 6 to 7 years of age or 8 years of age, they are more understanding. So we can say the after effect of thumb sucking habit, what happens to the dental and what happens to the skeletal problems and how awkward it looks. So we make the child aware, we give them the psychological way of management, and that is the most commonly done first management in thumb sucking habit, that is a psychological management, and there is a hypothesis which is the beta hypothesis or the Dunlop hypothesis. And according to this hypothesis, what is done is that the child is made to stand in front of the mirror, and the child is asked to engage in this activity, that is a thumb sucking habit. So the child feels how awkward it is while placing the thumb into the oral cavity, and finally the child itself will try to diminish or eliminate this thumb sucking habit. That is the beta hypothesis. Now, the next method of management is the chemical management. That is, you apply various chemicals which are easily available onto the thumb or the fingers, whichever digit is engaged in this habit. So you apply the chemical onto the thumb or the digits to stop this activity. And if the psychological management is not applicable, if chemical management is also not working out, the next one is the mechanical management. So in mechanical management, you have the extraoral and the intraoral approach. The extraoral approach is what we apply on the thumb. That is, you have different kinds of thumb caps, thumb covers are available. You have long sleeves are available, which covers the thumb and the digits, so the child is not able to place them into the oral cavity and they doesn't get the pleasure. So they, once they don't get the pleasure of placing the digits, what happens? They will gradually eliminate it. They'll gradually discard the habit. Or you can place bandages onto the elbows, which restrict the movement of thumb and digit into the oral cavity. So these are the extraoral approach. That is, we are placing on the thumb or the wrist or the elbows. And coming to the intraoral approach, that is, we are placing into the oral cavity. So what happens is that in this habits, thumb sucking habit, the child is having a pleasure because he or she is able to place a thumb or digit into the oral cavity. So if that pleasure is cut off, okay, if there is any hindrance for the placement of the thumb, what happens is that gradually the child feels that I'm not getting sufficient pleasure. So the child will try to eliminate it. Okay, will try to withdraw from the habit, and that uh, those things are done by the different intraoral appliances that you have got. Crips, you have got fixed tongue crips are there, tongue raids are available. You have, as seen in the third pic, it's a bluegrass appliance where there are bead is placed. So all this, what happens is that the child will not have a pleasure of placing the thumb or the digits into the palate. So gradually the child will try to withdraw or eliminate the habit. So these are also some of the appliances, intraoral appliances, which are there to manage the thumb sucking habit. So the most recently introduced appliances, the extraoral appliances are the, you have the alarm wrist. That is, you have got a wristwatch, and that, along with that, you have an attached alarm. So as a child is trying to place the digit, what happens is that the alarm sound is made. So the child is aware that he or she is not supposed to do that, because these habits are always done unintentionally. So when that alarm sound is heard, the child is aware that he or she is not supposed to do that. So that is how they try to eliminate. The second is that you have got more long sleeves where the hand is put in, so that the child is uncomfortable or is not able to place the digit or the thumb into the oral cavity. And the third, you have got different thumb places are present, digit places are present, which covers the digits and the thumb, where the child is not able to place them into the oral cavity. So this is how, this is the most common habit, that is the thumb sucking habit. So we just covered what are the causes and what effects it does and how can we prevent it. And it has to be prevented at the earliest before it causes very severe malocclusions, very severe dental and skeletal malocclusions. So thank you so much.